Greetings.
Hello.
My greetings. Well met. Greetings, traveler.
Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Hello and welcome to episode 274 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, January 14th in the evening. Joining from Gadgetzan, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Karazhan, California, we have Botticus.
I'm sleepy.
That's a mood. That's a whole mood right there. And from Undercity, Pennsylvania, we've got Edelweiss.
Hello, everyone.
And from where you are listening, we're directly supported by you. If you'd like to find out how you can support us, receive rewards in return, head to patreon.com/CoinConcede. You can also support us by leaving an iTunes review. Totally free. Really helps other people find the show. People have been leaving even more reviews lately. We really appreciate it. You're great. You should know you're great. And you're telling us that we're great too. It's great all around. And we will read those reviews out on the bonus episode, which we should do. Well, we just did it like 2 weeks ago. I don't know. End of the month? We'll figure it out. We don't know yet. And we have two more new patrons. They're both producers. We're so lucky. Boopty Bop, great name, and Pat T. Thank you so much for being our newest producers. We appreciate you, and you're great. Everything great. Life and Ladder. Edelweiss, you've been streaming.
I have.
How's that been going?
It's been nice. Honestly, it's just an effective way of making me actually feel good about playing Hearthstone. I felt like I was getting caught in this system for a while where I couldn't actually qualify for esports things recently because there was nothing to qualify for, and previously because I didn't want to dedicate my whole weekend, every weekend, to trying to do that and maybe not being successful. So anyway, this esports system has not been great for me, and I kind of hit legend every month, and then I don't know what to do. And playing on ladder doesn't feel productive. So streaming has been a nice way for me to feel kind of productive with my Hearthstone. And that's been really nice.
Well, good news about ladder and productivity is coming up later this episode.
Yeah. Well, I've never been a grinder either.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can hit that spot.
It's definitely a different approach than tournaments, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad you've been making content and playing Edelweiss decks on stream, and it seems like, attendance has been pretty good from what I've seen when I've checked it out. I'm glad that people are tuning in. Botticus, how's your gaming time going?
I'm spending time. I'm playing games, I guess. New PoE patch comes out tomorrow. I'm moderately ambivalent. Is that a word that works for this? It's coming out. I should be more excited, and I'm not. So, definitely gonna play it, see how it is. Playing WoW, it's been also kind of meh, but I don't know. Gaming is in a weird spot right now, I guess. I did play. I played a Battleground last night and got another spicy pretzel mustard that I was excited about. But
Wait,
it's like
spicy?
I didn't get the
spicy.
yeah, where you don't lose a round.
Well, no, where you win every round. Spicy is where you win every round.
Oh,
that's a really hard one.
I don't think I got that.
Just pretzel mustard is
not
you don't lose
losing
any rounds.
But
I don't know. I have to go check.
Yeah.
I know I ended at 40 life, but I think I was playing Millhouse and I upgraded on 8 gold and 9 gold from 4 to 4, up to 4 and up to 5.
So you probably had a tie
just
there.
Didn't lose rounds.
Probably had a tie.
I'm assuming I did.
Yeah.
I was expecting to lose one of those rounds and then I didn't. So.
Well, that's pretty rad. Yeah, BG's in a good spot right now. Have you been playing a lot of them?
Off and on. It kind of depends on what kind of mood I'm in. I'll play a few in a row, usually, and I was on a really good streak for a while. I got up to like 8K or something, what felt like relatively easily, and then I had a bunch of games in a row where I didn't do well, but I only dropped like 200 points, and then I won one, and it put me right back to where I was. Or I didn't even win. I got like second. So I'm not losing a lot for losing, and I'm getting a lot of points for winning. And I think I'm close to like 8,500 now, so might even look at getting to 10K at some point. I think I can probably. I think getting there shouldn't be too bad. I'm kind of getting the feel of it, but every once in a while you just have a couple games where you're like, I had one where I was offered 4 tier 4 heroes, and it's like, okay, well maybe I can get an achievement on one of them. It actually the achievement is actually kind of nice because it doesn't force you to play any of the lower played heroes, but when it's kind of close, you're like, well, I don't have achievements on this one, and it's close enough where it's probably worth it to just play this hero, and you get a bit more variety out of your games, which is kind of cool. So like I played a Rat King game, and I was like, well, if I hit the minions that lines up with my hero power, I'll probably do fine. And then I didn't, so I did not do fine, but got to play Rat King again, I guess.
Remember when that hero was too good and they had to nerf it, by the way? And then,
Yeah.
and it is actually exactly the same as it is right now, and it's tier 4.
No, it's
Yep.
but they buffed it a lot. It's +2/+2 now.
Oh, it's +2. It was +1
Yes.
+2.
Yeah, it's +2/+2 now, and still not remotely good. It's
Yeah.
Because
It's
it doesn't
tier 4.
revolve around taverning up quickly.
Well, it's a lot of things. So they added a bunch of neutral minions.
Right. Yeah.
And
You
they
miss a
all
lot.
and also they added minion types since he was broken. When he was
Right.
broken, there was only
That's true.
4 or 5 minion types.
Well, it's still 5 per game. They have jail. It only matches up with the 5 in the game at any given time.
But I thought it was.
So it'd be effectively the same then.
Yes.
So
What were
the neutral minions.
They
matter
added-
also.
So
they've
the initial
added-
5 was.
They added dragons, then pirates, then elementals. Those 3 in that order. So there's one more. There's one extra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, there's
So
one
initially it was just demons, murlocs, beasts, and
extra. Mechs.
mechs.
Back when Junk Bot was
those
broken.
were, and that's when he was broken, because there's only 4 tribes,
Right.
so you're more likely to hit.
Interesting. But yeah,
And then they nerfed him because he wasn't he was too good with 4 tribes, and then they added a 5th tribe, and nobody played him again. And now it's +2/+2 and still tier 4 or whatever.
Yeah. And incremental minion value definitely just matters a lot less than it used to, because the games are so much faster and everything is so explosive.
Well, everything now just feels like it's about taverning up really fast. All of the good heroes get to tavern up before all of the other heroes. So,
Yep.
like you can still squeak by mid-level finishes if you're having a rough game by not taverning up fast, but you're not going to get first or second by taverning up to 4 on 9 gold. You should be looking at taverning up to 5 on 9 gold, which is kind of crazy.
And I struggle a lot because I can't transition very quickly. Like I'm bad at the APM turns, so I have a sense that okay, I'm supposed to get up to 4 quickly, and then do something that lets me get a 5-star minion, and then that's my build, right? That's my carry, whatever. But then I can't do it fast enough, and I take 1,000,000 damage.
Yeah, it's in a really weird spot where like sometimes honestly the plan is to like tavern up to 5 when you've been behind all game and just hope you don't die, and then have a really good turn where you're on tavern 5 either on par with everybody else or before everybody else, and somehow catch up, because there's some pretty decent like tavern tier 5 minions that help you catch up. Or if you just happen into a triple when you taverned up early to 5 and you get a 6, a lot of the 6s do a good job of stabilizing you. Even the new Alystra, right? even though it got nerfed -3/-3, is still just it's good in the early game because it's just a lot of stats.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then also because there's Elistra, and then the other one that sounds like her, the pirate lady,
Eliza.
Eliza, which I always get confused because the names are too close together. But
Yeah,
Eliza
yeah.
also does a really good job of stabilizing you if you have one pirate. So
And
yeah, it's taverning up fast and then finding a way to stabilize and then running away with the game if you're on 5 or 6 before everybody else.
even if you just need to not lose a bunch of combats, if you triple into a boat, you will probably just like suddenly win a bunch of combats that you otherwise would have lost. It's not going to last forever. But if you're like I'm really behind, I've taverned up a lot, and you hit a boat, you can just play it, and it's at least going to be like 20 something stats that will win you a couple rounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
boat's good for stabilizing and bad for
Winning.
anything else. Yeah. Like boat is one of the ones you want to hit the least out of the tier 6 unless you're just so far behind you need to not take damage for a couple turns.
That's been my experience a lot, to be honest. I hit something like a boat or a gas coiler and stabilize for a while, and then I get top 4 and lose. So I am at the point. Really, I've been playing BGs, one because it is pretty enjoyable right now, even though I still don't like watching it. I've been watching Pizza in terms of streams. But two, I'm trying to get the achievements. The only problem is at this point I have most of the top 4 achievements for all the different heroes, and I have like none of the wins. I think I have a win on Omu, and that might be it.
Omu's a
I
good
might
hero.
have picked one up on Elise. Yeah. I mean, obviously they're both very strong right now, but for other ones, I have been getting like second or just top 4, and so I'm not going to play a hero that I've already gotten a win with because there's no achievement for it anymore.
Yeah.
I still don't. There's also still a couple heroes that I have zero idea how to play them. Like absolutely no idea why they're so high tier. Like Cthulhu, literally have
Okay.
played it a bunch of
Oh,
times.
I can tell you how to play
That's
Cthulhu.
my favorite.
I tell you how to play Cthulhu.
You
Turn
play-
one.
isn't it? You
Turn
play
one, you
one
press the
minion?
button. Turn one, you press the button.
Okay.
Yep.
Turn
Mhm.
two, buy it. Like freeze a token if you see it. Turn two, token. If you don't see a token, press the button. Turn three, buy a minion, press the button. Turn 4, level, press the button. Like it's you just every single turn, every turn of the
Wow.
game, press the button.
Okay, so I wasn't doing it on turn 1, so I was behind all game. That's
Yes.
interesting.
Turn 1, and then if you hit the token on 2, you either freeze turn 1 or you find one turn 2, Elemental, Alley Cat, or Tide Collar. Then you can buy that and do that. Then you can level button turn 3, and then you're fine. And you just do it every single turn, because that means if you do it on turn 2 on a Elemental, it's a 4/4. You bleed everything. And then on turn 5, or on 5 gold,
You don't beat Millhouse, but
well, no. And then on 5 gold, when you button and level, it's 7/7. Like it's you keep up just fine there. Press the button every single turn, starting with the first turn of the game.
It's also really
Alright.
satisfying if you roll the 2/3 taunt that like buffs adjacent minions, and since you have so few minions starting out, you can kind of guarantee the hits. So if that's your pickup after you've taverned up, then you can start making that pretty huge.
Also, find a Bronze Warden. Like it's
Jeez, yeah.
that's the case for every comp in the game,
like
Everyone.
but
like
especially
every hero.
Cthulhu and Rag, which are the only
Mhm.
top tier heroes that are
Issue.
that's or Rakanishu, yeah. But out of the top 10 heroes, 8 of them are like tavern up econ heroes, where it gives you something for free or really helps you jump the curve. Or there's Rag and Cthulhu, which are just stats for less mana than you would normally pay. And so you don't tier up as much because your carry is your hero power.
Mhm.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And then like the other one that I'm struggling with a lot is Jandis, which is
She's a
not
lot worse
one
than
of the
she used
top
to be.
tier.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think she's still good. A lot of people or a lot of the top streamers pick her very often.
Yeah.
And I think she's good. I just don't she's very, very difficult to figure out what you're supposed to be doing. And most of the time what you're supposed to be doing is Murlocs, I think. because you just have really good like the token strategy is good with her, and then also Primal Fin or whatever. You can do some busted things.
I don't know if Dog is the best example of what high tier players do, but from what I've seen, the best thing to do with Jandis is Khadgar tokens. Like, that's what I mostly see the really high tier players doing, that you always guarantee that every token is 2 tokens, and then you just Khadgar and make a bunch of 6s. Because yeah,
you put the token maker in the shop and then buy it again. And
So that means that even just a Khadgar by himself without Bran is a triple in a token, and you can do that every turn. And if you find a Bran or a Bran's Blessing, then you can make multiple triples very quickly. So the top tribes for Jandis are dragons, elementals, and big demons, and that makes sense to me, just because it's you either put buffer demons back in the shop for Wrathweaver, or you do Khadgar and you find a bunch of 6 triples, and that's it. Because like the comps for the high tier dragons or the high tier elementals are all like just nothing but 5s and 6s, and with elementals, once that gets going, you can put Tavern Elemental back in the shop and just like constantly keep farming elementals and so on and so forth.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Tavern with a rag, that's nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I've also been doing pretty well with demons lately, surprisingly. So I just wasn't playing demons for a long time, and then all of a sudden I just had a run of games where getting a bunch of stats and killing people early was good because everybody's leveling up really fast. So you can just get ahead of people who are getting greedy.
Yeah, demons is kind of the zoo of BGs. Like, it's Big Fernal helps a lot. Token demons don't exist anymore. Like, you can't really do token demons. Soul Juggler is so much worse now.
So disappointing. My favorite kind of demons, but stuff gets too big too quickly.
Yeah, like, you can have a Soul Juggler and a Void Lord mid-game. You can have some Imprisoners, but it's all about Wrathweaver, Floating Watcher, Big Fernal. Like, that's kind of where the game plan is right now. So, it's cool. That's a good way to top 4. And it's a good way to push people out of the game in the middle of the game, especially if you want to fight it against some greed. Yeah, I've been playing so it's been an interesting week game-wise. But before I continue, the idea of the achievements influencing your heroes, it reminds me a lot of the Dark Thirst in Hades, where the weapon is glowing purple.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where, like, if you need
Or
a
the fates.
tiebreaker. Yeah. If you need a tiebreaker, the game is saying, if you do this thing that we want you to do, you get a little something extra. And it's really just the designer introducing variability to the gameplay in a soft way and not a hard way. They're not forcing you to do it, but it's giving you the option and dangling the little carrot at the end of the stick, saying, hey, come get this carrot. And, achievements are a net positive for the game if they were viewed outside of the context of the 3-week-long discourse session on twitter.com, then I think it would be a really big net positive, but it was unfortunately. Timing is everything. So, past week, outside of Conquest, it's been a pretty good time for me in gaming-wise. I've been playing a little bit of Hades, but not a ton. Hearthstone BGs was my main game mode before the nerfs hit on Friday, which of course was the day after we recorded when we had no news to talk about. Thanks, Hearthstone. But I'm still really enjoying BGs. My rating was at 700, I think. Like, I'd played 2 or 3 of them total before the Dark Moon Prize came out. I'm above 4K now. Like, I'm still bad, but, like, I'm playing enough that I recognize what people are going to do a little bit more often. I still try and play Pirates too much. Probably don't play Pirates. Because Hogger's really fun, but...
God, I love Pirates, and they're just not good. Unless you're the combo. Like, the Khadgar combo is so good.
That's what I've been trying to do, and I keep top 4ing because I don't get the full combo.
You just, like, don't scale. It just, like...
I'm not Dog.
So
I can't play the way the Dog plays. Even Dog, he had triple Golden Salty Looter, double Golden Hogger in a recent video that he did. And he got second.
Whoa.
Second place!
What?
Because it wasn't good enough against Divine Shield Poisons. Because this is Battlegrounds. This is Hearthstone Battlegrounds. That's what happens. Is that you make this comp with a bunch of stats, and then they play Divine Shield Poisons. You're like, well, that was fun while it lasted. So, I don't know. It's fun. I try it too much. Tripling into Caligos is still good. I like playing it's BG's just really fun right now, so I've been playing a lot of it. But since the nerfs, what's good on ladder? Smork. Just a lot of Smork decks. So I tried to play a bunch. And it's only halfway through the month, so take this with a grain of salt, but I tried to play a bunch, and I tried a bunch of different stuff. And first, I was like, is Rogue still good? Yes, it is. But the in-between aggro version I was playing to punish Shaman with Defias Ringleaders isn't as necessary anymore. You either want to go back to World Kicks, or you want to go face, like stealth aggro face. So, tried stealth aggro face, pick up a list from a French player named Baya, and went 14-4 into top 200. And then I've been playing some Face Hunter, and also I've been trying out Pun's deck. He's rank 3 NA right now, I think. He doesn't even play Greyheart Sage. He plays Penflinger.
Oh, right.
And he plays a Cloak of Shadows, the 3-mana epic spell from the most recent set that gives your hero stealth. I had a very enjoyable game today where I had lethal in hand against a lifesteal combo demon hunter, and it was like turn 7. And I was like, all right, they're totally gonna Eldrachi Warblades me. So I played a sneaky delinquent Cloak of Shadows pass. They went Eldrachi Warblades, Chaos Strike, Twin Slice, Oops Emote, Concede, because they couldn't attack anything. It was amazing.
Oh, glorious.
So my current rank is rank 144 NA, which is pretty solid. Doing all right. So I don't know.
That is solid.
Maybe I'll see if I can hit double digits, because I'm starting to play against names I recognize in gold card backs. So hold my own there. The metagame right now has a lot of Enrage Warriors. Enrage Warriors really picking up a lot again. So maybe switching off the face decks might be in my near future, but we'll see. Because they gain a lot of armor. Yeah, I've seen a surprising amount of lifesteal DH too. But yeah, so I don't know. Pretty happy with that. And Savit's been playing a game lately that I didn't think I would play again, but I bought this a while ago. And I guess there's a lot of depth to it. Bloons Tower Defense 6. So it came out 2 years ago.
Like you told me about this game 2 years ago.
It's a tower
Actually,
defense
I think
game.
It was like 2 years ago.
It's a tower defense game that they actually continually update and balance. Like it's a live service tower defense game. Like it's got a phone client, of course. It's a mobile game, but it's also on Steam, and everything and it has cloud saves. So I have it on my iPad, on my phone, and on my computers, and it all just syncs. And there's a surprising amount of depth to it. So, and it's a tower defense game, so it doesn't require as much attention or APM as BG. So I've just been playing that, and it's kind of nice to have a game that you can both think really hard about and then half pay attention to, and that's cool. And it's offline with cloud saves. I don't know. It's been enjoyable. So, good gaming week.
Is tower defense another genre that started in Warcraft 3 Custom?
Probably. I don't know.
I wasn't sure if it existed in some, bit game form beforehand, and then they put it into Warcraft 3, or if it started in Warcraft 3 Custom games because, you could build towers in Warcraft 3.
MOBA is technically a tower defense game. At least the MOBA's out right now.
And Rampart was an arcade and NES game.
Significantly different, but
I
think they used to be before MOBA was a thing. I think they used to be classified as tower defense games, actually.
Pretty.
If I remember that correctly.
It's they were just. I remember them getting popular in around the end of the Flash gaming era. That was really when they picked up. They were browser games most of the time, and then really, really picked up. And there was some AAA tower defense titles like Plants vs Zombies was a big one. Defense Grid: The Awakening was a big PC title. But yeah, it's
Elemental tower defense was really popular on Warcraft 3 Custom, and then I remember seeing it as a mobile game later on.
Yeah.
Because with Elemental, it was the whole thing you would pick an Elemental early on, and then you'd pick another one later, and they would combine in all these interesting ways.
Yeah. I don't know the etymology, so to speak, but I do know that it's a genre that I didn't realize was still alive and kicking. But yeah, they're actively balancing the game, and it's got quite a bit of depth to it, and it's fun. So, It's a
I just realized MOBAs are PvP tower defense.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Kind of funny.
interesting. So, and really, Hearthstone is just PvP solitaire.
Okay, well, moving on to
It's
the
not
news.
really. I'm memeing. Moving on to the news, we've got some things to discuss, starting with last Friday. We know you've heard about the nerfs on all your other favorite podcasts, but you're going to listen to us talk about them a week later. Let's go.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right. So yeah. We kind of we discussed what we thought would be some of the nerfs, and for once we actually got one right. And by we I mean Hat and Edelweiss got this one right. And but Bogspine Knuckles got hit with a small nerf to the attack. It is now a 3-2 weapon instead of a 4-2 weapon. And then Edwin Van Cleef finally couldn't dodge anymore. Dodged so many nerfs, and finally our 3-mana 2/2 became a 4-mana 2/2.
I did not see
In
this
addition,
coming.
there was
Did not see this coming even a little bit.
Me neither. Especially with the follow up, which we'll get to, but also on the BG side, Illustra, I kind of alluded to this earlier, went from a 7/7 to a 4/4, which is a much needed change because that card was super busted as a 7/7 and is still now it's more of a tier 6 tech card instead of just a tier 6 powerhouse that is also a tech card.
Yeah, it's
So,
really powerful.
She's in a good spot.
What I liked about Illustra, what I still like about Illustra, if you're doing like Bear and Rivendare beasts, and you have your Macaw and you have your Goldrin,
So good.
your Macaw's always going to go off now, right? There's never a chance that the opponent attacks first and kills, like they have a Wind Fury minion and they kill 2 things. They're always going to hit Illustra 4 times first. That's always where the first 4 attacks are going to go. So if you have a comp that depends on a certain thing happening in a certain order, your first 2 attacks are going to happen. But when she was a 7/7, she would also kill stuff that was attacking into her, and that wasn't necessary. You don't need to do that. It's fine as a 4/4. So yeah, I'm glad they changed it, and she's still the pick in quite a few discovers, I think.
Yeah, kind of a good all around, but now it's not, you don't just put it in the comp because it's good. Now you put it in because, like you said, you need something specific to go on, or you're trying to protect a certain minion, or you just want to make sure if it's a good tech card against a bunch of divine shields attacking you early.
It's also very good if you are Ragnaros or Cthulhu, because then you can make it into a 7/7 and then a 10/10 and then a 13/13. You get the idea.
Or if your pirates, like combo pirates, can play one of these, because you're already usually playing down a minion, but then also just it ends up being good, and you can kind of play around it too a bit if depending on positioning. If you have like cleave minions, you can do stuff with it. It just makes playing taunt minions a little less punishing. So Illustra's very good. And then as far as these also on to note, Edwin is going to be reverted back to a 3-mana 2/2 when he rotates out this year. And keep in mind, we're saying rotate, we're not saying getting Hall of Famed, which we will get to. That is going to be a discussion. But I don't know, let's talk about the 2 nerfs for standard, essentially. So Bogspine Knuckles going to 3 attack. Hat really wanted this. Kind of saw this as a really good nerf. I kind of agree with where they went on this. And also, I've still seen some evolved shamans around. I mean, I'm not at the same levels as probably you two, but still seems fine. Just not as not quite as how would you say?
Broken as F.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like where you can't come back from it. Helpless. You don't feel as helpless against it.
This nerf was enormous. It was like
Mhm.
it looks like a really small number. Since the balance patch in Legend ranks, Evolve Shaman is a tier 4 deck on HS Replay with 47% win rate. It is specifically a deck that you can play to try and beat Warrior, but it has been close to deleted. The first week per Vicious Syndicate at D4 and up, it had a 45% win rate. At Legend, it was not popular enough to show up in the top 16 decks, so I don't have win rate data. But they didn't kill the deck, but they dramatically changed it. And the reason to play it now is if you're trying to beat Warrior, it's one of the better options. If you don't want to play Paladin, I guess, kinda. But even then, the matchup is like against Bomb Warrior, it's good. Against Enrage Warrior, it's good. Every other matchup is bad. All of them. Every single one. So,
Yeah, it seems to have awkwardly been in the position where it was like far too strong before, and this change was meant to like tone it down a little bit, and in fact, it like just put it on the other side of the spectrum. Like, I don't actually think it's a bad deck. It's just the other strong decks right now are like way above.
what's the free 5-drop from Dread Corsair and the ability to remove a 4 health minion the turn you play it helped it not die to any kind of mid-range aggro deck. Now, if you play an Imprisoned Felmaw, they lose the game. Like, they get hit by that thing probably 3 times and they can no longer face tank it. So what do? They take about 20 damage from a single Imprisoned Felmaw. And you can't do that. The format has been... Yo, AK4 Life, thank you so much for that sub. The format has turned pretty aggressive pretty quickly. And it just... Evolve Shaman, it reminds me a lot of when Conjurer's Calling was nerfed from 3 to 4, Cyclone Mage fell apart. It's... You don't want a deck that's only good because of a single broken interaction to be good, but they did remove a major piece of the metagame with a single attack. I wonder if nerfing it to 6 mana would have been less impactful. But
Interesting.
But at the same time, I don't want to make Evolve Shaman into a deck that's just as good if you draw Lightning Bloom and way worse if you don't. I don't like that play pattern either, so I'm glad they changed this, and I'm glad the deck suffered so much because of it, but it definitely had a really, really major impact in the format, and Shaman was one of the things that was keeping Warrior in check, so now it's a question of, what do we do about Warrior? Paladin might rise up, Priest might rise up. The format is already feeling a lot healthier than it was before, but Warrior's definitely been a really big part of the meta for me in the games that I played over the last few days.
I mean, and we've talked about for a while Bloodsworn going to 4, maybe. Like, put it back to 3/3, put it to 4.
Well,
I don't know. I
the
don't love like
best
totally killing
Warrior
everything.
deck
But...
right now does not play Bloodsworn.
Wait, what?
The best Warrior deck by stats.
Bomb Warrior is the best Warrior deck right now?
I'm sorry, Edelweiss.
Why are you sorry to her? Wasn't she playing Bomb Warrior?
I'm sorry to
She's
everyone
like
that
the
has
one
to
of us
play
that
against
was
it.
actually. She was the one
not
that
recently.
went to the dark side
Not
for a while.
recently.
Yeah, more recently than either of us, as far as I know. Have
sure.
you been betraying us just
Look,
like you
it was-
betrayed us?
I like
It
Enraged
was
Warrior.
just-
Take the
Legend.
rogue hero portrait.
Okay, that's not a betrayal. Chill on that, bro. Chill. Relax.
Oh, that was a betrayal. I haven't forgotten.
No, a betrayal is a card you discover when you're playing Rogue. It's a different thing. When I play Warrior, I'm playing Enraged Warrior for as long as I can because that deck is Combo Priest, and they took away Combo Priest, but then they made Red Combo Priest. I'm just going to keep playing that till Risky Skipper rotates. But Bomb Warrior. So looking at the stats, it's actually pretty close between Enrage and Bomb, but Bomb is on the rise. And Enrage Warrior has some pretty clear counters, but Bomb Warrior not quite as much. I will say that I have enjoyed beating Bomb Warrior with Face Hunters, and it does look like LeBrun Paladin is pretty well situated, even though it's not all that great against Rogue. It's good against a lot of other things, and I wouldn't be surprised if Paladin is here to save us. But yeah, Bomb Warrior Very strong, does not play Bloodsworn. I'm not saying that I don't like that nerf, by the way, I do, but
I wonder, by the way, I wonder what happens if you instead of just nerfing the attack, if you make Knuckles cost just a little bit less, even just have it be like a 4-drop, but have it only have 1 or 2 attack, where it just like can't actually clear anything, and its purpose is actually to just set up evolves over the course. If that makes it too good.
Yeah, I think the problem with doing that is when you do nerfs, you want to do one thing at a time, just like
Right.
when you're doing a science experiment, you only want to affect one variable. So
I mean, I definitely would rather them have gone with what they did. I'm just positing a theoretical scenario where Bogspine Knuckles it kind of changes essentially what Bogspine Knuckles was, where Bogspine Knuckles essentially was like a board control and evolve tool, and then you take away the board control part of it, and it just becomes an evolve tool that's like not a spell. And I wonder how it changes it. But
well,
probably not. I wouldn't want to go that way, I don't think.
one of the notes that Alec made on Twitter, he put a lot of his comments in the patch notes this time, which I like a lot. But on Twitter, when he got asked about evolving, and got asked about if feel matters to balance, he said that feel is one of the most important things. They've gotten a lot of feedback about evolve. They'll approach it differently in the future, and they'll have less of a focus on cost reduction with cards like Mogu. I think that evolve right now is built on the concept of cheat mana somehow, either with Hair or Mogu or Dread Corsair or something, and then evolve that thing, and you get a really cool big minion. And
Right.
because of that foundational design choice, then I don't think there's a way to fix it. It either is good enough cheating or it isn't. And as we've seen, the difference between that is one number in one place. So I wouldn't really want to risk it where it becomes a risk of an earlier swing card. Because we don't want swings to happen early. That's why they nerf both of these cards specifically.
Yeah, the way I would like to see evolve go is kind of like Shaman's version of a priest healing their minions, where you get to make value trades and then turn them into something else. But it's not about, Cheaty getting Flesh Shaper down to 0 mana, but it's still a 9 mana card and you get a 10-drop. It's just about, mid-range, make some value trades, and then now it's something else, so it's healed. Then it's a lot more board-centered and not as much blowout-centered.
Remember how
So
Mogu used to
if
cost 7?
evolve just like
Mogu used to cost 7.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I'm
prefer
really glad
to
it doesn't do
forget
that.
about when that happened, when that was a thing. Definitely would like for that to have not been a thing. But I was gonna say, I wonder if evolve turned into just like it keeps its stats as if it had all of its stats, if that makes sense. So if you evolve a Mogu Flesh Shaper that traded into something, it just becomes a 3/4 again. Or it essentially like resummons the minion with vanilla, like no
I mean,
stats, I guess.
that wouldn't be evolve.
Yeah, I guess.
My point is more if
Maybe
they
give it
change
+1/+1.
design so you don't get these cost reduction cards so much.
It's
Yeah.
make evolve less cheaty. Got it. Check.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't know the specifics of the implementation. I would want to think about it. Because there are a lot of ways that you can make it weird. You could kind of like the way that you would phrase it if it was how Bot was saying it. It'd be kind of like Muck Morpher, where it'd say transform a minion into a minion that costs 1 more. It keeps its stats, but like I don't think that would be good enough to see play. I think it would be pretty bad.
All right. It transforms it into the same minion, but a fresh copy, and it has +1/+1. It's evolved. It's a little bit better.
Maybe.
So all desert hares turn into tutus. You get a bunch of tutus. That's not good enough.
No.
We'll workshop this one.
Yeah.
All right. What about Edwin? I don't know. What do you two think about this Edwin? It's definitely a nerf, but
Yeah. It's a nerf.
it's
It probably needed to happen a long time ago, but I don't think this was the nerf, right? I mean, Foxy's gotta have something eventually, right? Card just doesn't cost mana.
Correct, but the patch notes say this is the best Edwin has ever performed and it's the highest win rate card in multiple rogue archetypes. You can change that card. That can get we can
totally.
do that.
No.
It's,
I didn't expect it. I think it's a good change. I just don't know. I feel Rogue's still extremely powerful post this change.
but beatable. And this is the first Kael'thas nerf in Skullomance. Remember when we were playing 30 mana turns and getting a turn 6 double survival? Like, they took that out of the game. Druid was still good, but you could beat it and you didn't just get soloed. And this card was soloing on turn 1. So,
yeah.
It's still good with Foxy.
You could still do that play.
But
that case scenario still happens.
But that's the only time Edwin is good now.
Out.
That's the only time Edwin is good now, because trying to play Edwin without Foxy now, it's awful. It's really bad. Like, how many times, I don't know about you all, a lot of the time, I would go like turn 4, 1-drop Evil Miscreant, turn 5, Lackey Edwin. That came up a lot. And you never just have the kind of a good turn Edwin now.
Yeah, you need the free stuff, right? You need the backstab, the shadow step, the prep. Like, you need to really have the goods.
Yeah.
But
even now, 4 total mana in Rogue is a ton. For a minion, it's a ton. It's a lot. Without Foxy, it feels awful every time. So we did a co-op session with Major Death yesterday, and the list that we were playing, which was high ranking on the China server, just took out Edwin for an SI7 agent.
That's been what Pizza has done as well.
You never want to Secret Passage into a 4-mana card. Never, ever, ever. So
I agree with all this, but is that really where you want it? Like, I don't know that that's where we wanted to put Edwin, where it's just a high roll card.
Well, we don't play it.
Like,
it's out of the deck. You take it out.
That's fine, I guess, but it still has like you said, it still has the Foxy turn. Obviously, like, it doesn't have those anymore because you don't play it. But is the place that you wanted to put Edwin where you just, like, if you still play it, it's because the high rolls are so good? It's essentially like a Keleseth, right? That's what.
No,
I mean, when you had turn 1 or 2 Keleseth, it's like busted, and then later in the game, it's just a 2 mana 2/2.
I mean, you need a lot more cards put together that turn 1, right? Like, you have to have Foxy step and be on coin.
It's not worth running anymore. I think it was a good change. Like, to call it just a high roll card implies that it happens often enough, but it feels like leaving it in the deck makes the deck worse. And I think that is a good place for Edwin to be temporarily. He's been the only playable classic legendary for multiple years. I think that he can take a breather for 2 months. I think that he can chill. And it doesn't feel like a good card anymore. It feels like it's on the back of Foxy, and Foxy already does so much work in that deck. I'm okay with just taking Edwin out, and it just makes the deck is already not super fair. The deck already cheats a bunch of mana and draws a ton of cards and outvalues every control deck with one card that costs more than 3 mana. But it's okay for that deck to also not have a turn 1 10/10. Like, that's fine. Or even like a turn 4 8/8 in addition to 3 other cards.
But I think I would agree with you if we weren't getting the rework and it being unnerfed, which they already said. Because then I would be sad for once Foxy rotates and Edwin isn't, that completely insane anymore. But yeah, I feel you had that. Having it take a break from this particularly busted form of Rogue where nothing costs mana feels good. I do think Foxy's going to need to take a hit at some point.
Yeah. It should cost something, but I do believe that it will eventually get adjusted, though the next news item may have some implicit adjustments that make Foxy less relevant.
So, before we leave this, I just want to say, Edwin, thank you for all the thanks for all the wins. I appreciate it, buddy.
Yes.
You're missed.
It's-
you,
I'm
buddy.
keeping my golden one, even though I'm not getting a dust refund for it, because he's always been there for me, so I'm going to be there for him.
I didn't
So
have a
long,
golden
and
one
thanks
because I
for all
don't
the
make
wins.
golden cards. But
Yeah.
yes. What Hat was referring to, the Hall of Fame is ending. We will no longer be having the same version of, well, we're not going to be having technically a Hall of Fame anymore at all. And we got this announcement about a week ago. Basically, Alec Dawson said that, Edwin got nerfed, but he will also be rotating at the end of, or rotating sometime this year. There's going to be changes to gameplay and making it easier for people with limited collections to play the game, which you always like to hear. The Hall of Fame will not exist in its current form, which is interesting. And basically, for those of you who had Edwin's, sorry, there's no point in awarding them. And then basically, they have some stuff in the works to announce in the coming weeks on why all of this is. But no more Hall of Fame. Or at least it says no Hall of Fame in its current form. Doesn't say no Hall of Fame. It just says not in its current form. What do we think this is? What does this mean? Are we getting Ice Block back? Is it coming back?
No.
Don't tell me.
No, we're not.
No, we're
Divine
not.
Favor Hat?
Okay. Before you say more dumb things, so what I said on Vicious Syndicate on the Data Reaper podcast this past week, this is everything we know is speculation. But what Alex specifically said is that it'll make the game easier to get into. He said that pretty clearly. If Chrome will work, then I can look at the exact quote. And looking at how they've balanced BGs, it makes a lot of sense to me that they just make a large basic set that they continually adjust. And that classic kind of goes away. It's positive changes for both gameplay and the ease of getting into the game with a limited collection, is the exact phrase. So they've nerfed basic cards recently. They nerfed Eldraki Warblades. That was a basic card. They changed it. It's fine. They nerfed Wild Growth, which is a basic card, right? I think. They've changed these cards a bunch of times. The logistic issue with Classic has always been you're taking away a bunch of cards that people own. But if you just give people cards for free, you can change them however you want. Because there were no dust refunds on Ultras because Ultras was free. So if you give people free cards and then you have to nudge them or change them, you can do what you want. Battlegrounds has been easier to balance because of closed pool. Nobody's collection is being impacted. So what if you make the entire Classic format, the entire Classic set, into a closed pool? You give everybody all the cards permanently, and then you change those cards when you want to. You can either nerf them, or each year you can actually change the cards that are in the box. It's pretty simple and elegant solution to the problem. And that means you don't need a Hall of Fame because Hall of Fame exists to take cards out of packs. And if you just give people the cards, they never go into packs. You don't need to worry about dust refunds. So I don't know what they're going to do as far as dust windfall, but it's pretty clear that when they rotate whatever classic cards they are, they're not giving us dust for them. So if you have an Edwin and you're not playing it right now and you want the dust back, dust it right now. Get your nerf dust. But they don't have to give us dust refunds for the new cards if they just give us the new cards. So makes a lot of sense for just the core set of the game to be free. And that means you can also change the weekly Tavern Brawl pack to the latest expansion, which is way better than classic packs. And it helps make the economy of the game better because then you get 52 more free packs a year. Yeah. I'd be surprised if it wasn't going that way. And yeah, like Craptasm was saying in the chat, you don't have to make it the same size as the current set because they just added 35 new cards to each expansion with the mini sets, which we don't know anything about yet. Apparently coming soonish. But if you have an extra 100 cards in Standard every year, then you can make Basic and Classic smaller because you have already replaced those cards. So yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how, if they do something like that, how they give rewards or give compensation to those people who have completed classic and basic sets already. If they're giving people just a bunch of those cards, right? What about the people that already have invested their collection in the entire classic or basic set? Well, not basic because you get the basic set already, but that'll be interesting.
Yeah, they don't really need to worry about compensating as much if all the new cards are free, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do something just because you paid money for these cards now and now you don't need to. I don't know. I wonder how
Yeah,
they'll
like it
handle
would be weird if, and I don't think this is how it's going to happen, but yeah, as Bot's saying, say I have all of Classic, and then suddenly all of Classic becomes, effectively public domain, right? Just everybody has all of Classic. Feels kind of bad because it's like, well, I spent all this dust or whatever getting all of Classic, and then now it's just available. That would be kind of feels bad.
I'd
So,
assume
Or they rotate a bunch of your cards, right? Like if they rotate your Edwin and it's like, well, I made this Edwin because it was in Classic and Basic, and people told me that I was always going to get to play this card because it's in Classic and Basic, right? Like that's the idea, is that if you invest into Classic packs when you're very first starting the game, you're always going to be able to play those cards because those cards never rotate unless they get Hall of Famed, in which you get refunded for those. So those cards are essentially safe. But if they change it so that they rotate a bunch of cards from Classic, then all of a sudden, all these people that were told to get Classic packs because you were going to get to use those cards now all of a sudden don't get to use those cards. That's
how many Classic Legendaries were people crafting? Alex, Mally, Edwin. No one is gonna be upset because they crafted the Beast, and now the Beast isn't playable in Standard.
Yeah,
Like, there
that
are a
is true.
lot of stinkers there. The way that I would do it if I were running it is that if a card stayed in Standard and became non-collectible, I would give you the dust for it, just the full dust value. And if it just rotates, then you can dust it or you can keep it, because it'll still be playable in Wild. That would be how I'd do it, and I would guess that a large portion of the cards in current Classic are not going to stay in Standard. But like the legendaries in Classic, have you looked at them recently?
Pretty mid. Yeah, mid
There's-
to bad, honestly.
There's
Pat, are
Alex.
you really trying to argue right now that the internet is not going to complain when
Oh, no,
they
I'm not
take
saying
away
that
stuff
other
from
people.
them?
It's not
Are
taking
you re-
away. It's giving free cards and letting you dust crappy cards that you were holding onto because maybe Tyrion will be in a deck someday. If Tyrion is Wild only, he will not be in a deck in Wild. There's no deck in Wild that's going to play Tyrion. They play 8/8 on turn 3 in that format, not 6/6 on turn 8. So you can dust that Tyrion. You can do it. You can get rid of it. You don't really need to hold on to Cenarius. You can dust Cenarius. You can
I'm
dust.
so sad about
King
Tyrion,
Crush.
honestly.
Yeah.
It used to be such a staple of like control paladins, and now it's just not good enough.
Did it really? It was a staple of Secret Paladin. We played it in mid-range Paladin decks through like 2016, and then it kind of went away.
I mean, any of the paladins that ran, there were paladins for a while where you ran Tyrion and you ran the restore 8 life, draw 3 cards.
Land, yeah. We kind of stopped playing those
yeah.
around like 2017-ish.
Well, that's what I mean. Like we have power creeped past those cards, and it makes me a little sad.
It's as much fun as it was to just slam a 6/6 Divine Shield taunt and then hit your opponent for 15. I don't know if that felt good for that to be game winning against you. And you can still play Tyrion. We just call it Zephyrus. Still play as many Tyrions as you want.
Oh, dear.
So yeah, I don't know. It's
But also but it's not just the legendaries, right? Well, that's all we know is rotate. We know Edwin is rotating, but who knows that? Like, what if they rotate some epics? What if Doomsayer gets rotated? Like for a lot of people, 400 dust is a lot of dust. If you spent 400 dust to craft a Doomsayer or a Thalnos or all these cards that people like, yeah, you have to think that, just because we crafted these cards a long time ago and we got plenty of use out of it doesn't mean that somebody who started the game a couple months ago, and I mean, I
Well-
guess the cards I said were not great examples of like epics that were
If you
that
crafted,
are highly played.
if you just
but, like,
crafted a bunch of brawls or shield slams or whatever, like
yeah, or twisting nether, there's
I mean, this is a version of the Zentimo problem, right? Like, if you just crafted secret passages and then they nerf Edwin, you can still play Rogue, but, like, Edwin's gonna be different. If you just crafted whatever legendaries were in Evolve Shaman, I forget which ones, Instructor Fireheart. If you just crafted Instructor Fireheart, another Shaman 3-drop, in a class that is now a much worse. It's still, this is going to be a thing that happens no matter what, of if you change things, the people that most recently invested in that thing are going to be the most affected. I wouldn't be surprised they have something going on for compensation, but if the compensation is we're making a bunch of new cards and giving them to you for free, I'm not going to say that people won't find a way to be entitled about the previous expenditure they had, but they're still getting all the new stuff for free, and
Yeah.
prior spending in an old system doesn't really have to mean anything unless they want it to. There are a lot of cards in Classic that I've kept because they're Classic, and I won't really have a major problem dusting my Cenarius if I really need that 400 dust. Plus, you say Doomsayer, he's been very clear for a while that the end is coming. Really, really clear. It was your fault for not listening.
I guess I'm just preemptively complaining for the people, even though I'm not the type of person that would complain
Yes.
about something like this.
You're doing it.
I'm preemptively complaining for the other people that would complain when in actuality
Preemptive devil's advocate.
Yeah,
they could
good.
add a bunch of cards.
I was
Honestly,
hoping
they
for
could,
more
like,
devil's advocacy.
yeah, and honestly, they could just add another classic set, not give it to us for free, and I'd probably still buy packs to be able to get those cards.
Yeah.
So
Be like if when the
I
Demon
don't
Hunter
really know
and
where I'm going with this.
I don't really know either. It's like if when the Demon Hunter prologue came out and they gave us all the Demon Hunter cards, so you were like, well, I just bought a bunch of Druid cards. Why was there no Druid prologue? Yeah. So anyways, excited for whatever's coming. Speaking of things that are coming that we're excited
yes,
about.
I am. The Hearthstone Esports came out and tweeted something. Well, they made an announcement, and it's something.
It's something.
Okay, there
Like-
is information in this. It is not an announcement of a lack of information. It's an announcement of a presence of information, and that's a big change for the esports team. Edelweiss, why don't you read this?
So, you want me to read the exact tweet?
I mean, you can give us the Cliff Notes if you want. That's fine.
Okay. Well, we're revealing the full 2021 schedule next week. Until then, take to the January ladder for a head start on qualifying to the first Masters Tour of the year. The top 32 ladder players in each region will secure invites at the end of the month. Good luck and have fun. So, I guess it's nice that they got to us before the month is halfway over. Yeah. I mean, it's legitimately challenging to get to High Legend if you aren't already well positioned. I'm glad that they gave this warning, recognizing that people are going to need to take some time to do that. So they needed to let people know the ladder matters. Otherwise, it'll sort of be the I didn't know HCT mattered for the Grandmaster system, or I would have done X, and you get people that just miss being Grandmasters for certain qualification things because they didn't do HCT Philly, etc. But I hope that I hope that I am wowed by whatever other stuff they announce to go with this, because top 32 for ladder is cool, and it's nice that it's again more relevance for ladder, but grind, that's still a heck of a grind. Like it was an intense grind for top 200 when it was a point system for HCT. It's been an insane grind for top 16, and top 32 is going to be better, but still insanely challenging. So I hope it's not just the same system, but with ladder mattering a little more.
Yeah, my only comment was at least 32 is more than 16.
It is, but if their
Somewhat
intent
more
is to keep
achievable.
the same number of people going to these events, that means far fewer qualifiers, which is interesting to me because I've said before, I don't think there should be the raw number of qualifiers that they've had because it's too much, and it suffocates any other esports for Hearthstone from existing because there's no time to do it where people aren't playing in qualifiers. But we just kind of have to wait and see.
Yeah, my expectation
But
is if you make everything online only, there's no travel costs. The reason the events were kept small is because they paid out to everybody. So if there's no travel cost and you don't need to pay out to everybody, you can double the size of the tournament and nobody cares because they're playing from the bedroom. So if you're doing that, you can easily just make a 600-player tournament instead of a 300-player tournament and run 1 or 2 extra rounds. And you don't have to pay out to the bottom 300. You can just make the tournament bigger.
Yeah, could be. And then people still get to play against, the best after having qualified for a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
so I assume if you had your solution, Edelweiss, it would be less qualifiers, more people qualifying, and then also this with more people from ladder qualifying, and then bigger tournament with 1 or 2 more rounds.
I'm going to stop you right there. Your solution for Edelweiss didn't include qualifying through third-party events. She's not going to accept it.
Oh, got it.
Like, honestly, it's not even necessarily that you have to be able to qualify through third-party events, but I would like third-party events to exist.
That's a bold statement, bold and brave, but yes, I agree.
Right now, third-party events are very, very small potatoes, and it would be nice to be able to have big prize pool third-party events.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be cool.
So we got something.
Yes.
With more coming soon, hopefully. more specific stuff coming soon. Another little small update. The Bnet Launcher had a bit of an update to it. I haven't updated mine yet. I've assumed this came out today.
Yeah, I just saw it. It's awesome. Putting those new UI hires to work.
It's right now. It's a staged rollout in North America only. This is Battle.net 2.0. It's a huge update. It matches their last beta. So it's right now. It's a staged rollout in North America only, just to monitor stability before they rolled out worldwide. But yeah, it looks a lot better, and there's more space for the games. And I believe the friend chat is like built into the sidebar. It's just a little bit more modern and more usable. You don't have to dig through menus for stuff quite as much.
And it gives you news for your game, which is pretty cool.
Shows how much I know, because as far as I could tell, it was the same with just the games at the top instead of the games on the side. So, sweet. It's updated, I guess. Looks the same to me. And then the last little news item we have here, we're actually going to go into a bit more in depth in Decksplanations because Ixar thankfully gave us content to talk about this week. So yeah, there was a huge AMA on Twitter with Ixar on Wednesday, and a bunch of questions got asked, and he answered a bunch of them, and he said if your question did not get asked, then he's going to try to make it a Wednesday thing where he just takes questions and answers them, which is pretty cool.
He also dramatically underestimated how many people were going to reply to him, which I'm surprised that he's surprised. but he answered for 2 hours. Lot of information out there, so we're gonna go over everything in there. Instead of Decksplanations, this is an Edelweiss pun. I did not make this pun. This is an Edelweiss pun. We're gonna have Deansplanations. So we're all very excited about that. But before we do that, we have to do tournaments. There was a tournament, and boy, is there a circumstance. Let's go. Let's go.
It's the grand tournament.
So the one big tournament that we had this week was the CN Gold Series Final. In the China time zone. China time zone is very important. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sif beat Shouty in the finals, but not with the original decks they submitted, because after the top 4, but before the finals, on Saturday morning China time, the Nerfs went live.
Correct.
Like, Edelweiss, you are no longer
How do you like that, Edelweiss?
you are no longer the winner of playing in a tournament closest to Nerfs,
Yep.
because in this tournament, Nerfs happened between 2 matches. And so they had to delay the tournament so players could submit new decks. They just theory-crafted, submitted new lineups. So Sif was originally on LeBroom, Secret Rogue, Evolve, and ETC Warrior. Shouty was on LeBroom, Highlander Priest, Evolve, and ETC Warrior. So only one Rogue, but both had Evolve Shaman. Post-nerf, the winning player, Sif, had Highlander Druid, LeBroom, Evolve, ETC, over OTK Demon Hunter, LeBroom, Control, Priest, and ETC. So Evolve Shaman still in the finals. No Rogues. Rogue was gone. And an OTK Demon Hunter appearance, as well as a Highlander Druid appearance. Very strange. I mean, they had literal no playtest time. Because, again, they finished a round, and they were about to start the next one, they're like, no, your cards are different now. It's... I'd say I don't know how I feel about this, but I know how I feel about this. I understand that this was their nerf window. Ixar actually talked about it in his AMA, but, like, what the F?
This is an official Hearthstone tournament, right?
It's
Like,
run
the
by
China Gold Series is official.
It's run by
like,
NetEase, not by Blizzard.
But it's like it's still essentially China's official source for tournaments.
Correct.
Which, I mean, it's for Grandmasters. It's essentially the China's version of Grandmasters. Why don't they have private client? Why don't they they have that for they had it for Battlegrounds or whatever? Why couldn't they tell them that the nerf window is going to happen here and just have them play on the patch that
it is odd
they
since
submitted decks on?
they have done that before as well.
They did that once. Did that one time for the SEA games. Last December 2019. They did it one time. They could have done it this time, I guess. I don't know. Like a Friday patch basically never happens.
You're saying that they did it once where they had them do that, but like the Battlegrounds are private servers, right? When they had the 8-player lobbies before 8-player lobbies were live on Battle.net, right?
I guess they were, yeah. I guess they had like the in-house Blizzard
done
server
tournaments.
Yeah.
Like they have tournaments, or even way before then. A lot of the like world championships where you got master accounts or whatever, right?
Well, super accounts, you can put super accounts on any server you want, but yeah, I think those might have been private servers. NetEase doesn't, I don't think they run the servers. They distribute the game, but they don't run the servers. They're Blizzard servers. Blizzard should have been able to make one, but again, they had 3 days lead time for the SEA games. This was in the middle of the tournament. So I don't know if they could reach anyone. I don't know if anything could have been done in time. I don't know if it's entirely possible that whoever was checking just missed it and didn't know that the tournament was going on, because again, it's if there's any server where this would have been missed, it's China. It's the other side of the world. It's not run by the same, it's not administered by the same company. But yes, it was poor timing. It was very poor timing.
It's seems pretty clearly a communication issue to me, because with the SEA games, you had Gia tweeting about like, hey, this is going to be weird, this announcement, and they're going to be playing with no time, and so they were able to like make a change. I don't know if it was single-handedly Gia that made it happen, but certainly having some amount of time for people to sort of, be annoyed about it brings attention to the problem so that they can maybe implement a change. There was so little gap between hearing that Edwin and Knuckles were getting nerfed and then it happening.
It was like an hour. It was very, very fast.
That if it wasn't in communication on their end already, I totally see how it would get missed.
Awkward situation for sure.
Oh yeah.
Very unfortunate, but
yeah.
I don't know. That just seems. If it seems to me like.
Certainly there was a better solution than this, right? Like certainly there was something that could have been done.
Obviously communication, but I don't know. In my head, I assumed that people who are doing official Blizzard sanctioned tournaments would have access to a private server to have their matches on. So, because then you have so much more control over things. But
yeah, I don't know how it works with China specifically. I know it's a very different circumstance over there. I don't know if Blizzard is allowed as a Western company to get involved. Like I don't know how it works. It might be something that NetEase has to authorize, and it's something could have been done, I'm sure, but they didn't. Sif won anyway. I mean, Sif versus Zhao T in the finals, you're not going to have a bad winner there, but yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, congrats to Sif. Finally got a big one. Finally got his trophy. Yeah, and we don't have a Vicious Syndicate report yet. Ladder early on, it's way too early to kind of tell what's going on. And we're an hour in the show and definitely have at least an hour of content, so we're going to jump right into Deansplanations. Let's go.
So rather than copy pasting the whole out of cards thing into our show notes, I just put the various categories that were covered. We've got a bit about the classic set rework, game modes, cards, mechanics, esports, game design and development, Dean's favorite card designs, and then we will end on Dean's dumb idea, which, spoiler alert, is awesome. This idea would be amazing. We'll get to it. We'll talk about it. So gonna just run down the article from the top.
Yeah. We can go in a loop. You can be Edelweiss, Bot, Hat in that order, and we can just go in that order. Okay.
Yeah. So first category is classic set rework. Just one bullet point on this, but
oh no, let's do the questions. Let's do the actual tweets.
Oh, you want to do the actual tweets? Okay,
yeah.
Not the summaries. Okay. All right. So full tweets. Wait, are they in a different order then?
Yeah, we're just gonna read them top to bottom. Starts with what were some of the cards over the years?
All right. So question, what were some of the cards over the years you came closest to nerfing, permanently or otherwise, but didn't? And Dean says, Gadgets and Auctioneer dodged for a couple of years before finally getting a nerf. Malagos was on the Hall of Fame list 2 to 3 times, but always slipped through at the last minute. We discussed the idea of changing the Warlock hero power very seriously in the early days of Hearthstone, but there was never a good idea for a replacement.
Whoa.
Yeah. Pretty intense. I am not surprised about the Warlock hero power thing, because hero power draw a card is real scary, and it kind of just means if Warlock has good healing, it's amazing, and it's part of why Zoo has always been a bit of a thing, because you can reliably get that card refill while you play cheap, efficient minions. So that's pretty interesting, but I wonder if there's something about Malagos there. I was on the Hall of Fame a few times. I wonder if Mally is going to go in that rework later.
If he doesn't, I'll be shocked. Absolutely shocked.
Follow-up question, I want to know, we discussed the idea of changing the Warlock hero power. Did they discuss the idea of changing the Demon Hunter hero power after it went live? That's what I want to know.
Yeah,
Paul.
this is
You can ask next Wednesday, right?
you
I
can.
could.
Yeah.
There's another question that I would much more like to ask that we will discuss in one of these questions below. There's a
Okay.
very serious question that deals with something I talked about recently that I'm very upset about.
Why don't you take the next one, Bot? Let's go.
Is there a specific card you thought was going to be a bust but ended up being a major player in the meta or the general community? Dean's response was Mysterious Challenger and Spirit Claws were my biggest whiffs on how powerful I thought they would be. I'm happy about how Mysterious Challenger turned out. Not so happy about Spirit Claws. Womp,
You
womp.
don't say.
Join the club.
Yeah.
1 mana, 9 damage? Nah, it's fine.
I mean, it's 3 to 9 damage, right? Just like the other cards in that format.
Yeah.
Ugh, savage.
So, yeah, I'm glad they changed Spirit Claws. What are some common misconceptions about game design you see players complain about that are really a result of things being too complex to program and implement? Why something doesn't come fast enough is a common one. When you work in a huge team, you need approvals from people who have no free time, get QA to do a pass when QA is fully booked, then get approval from third parties like Apple or Google. We often know what we want to do, but working on a multi-platform behemoth of the game like Hearthstone makes simple work take way more time than it would take a small dev team on one platform. Can often make small indie projects appear more in tune with things like game balance or bug fixes. Big teams on big games want that too, which is more complicated than we like. I feel like as a requirement to understand how corporate America works, that all people should serve a 3-month internship trying to get anything done at a really big company. It's coordination is so much a huge part of corporate America, and people often have no idea if they haven't been a part of it.
Honestly, even at Nerd Street, which is a startup, but has been growing, it can be challenging to get stuff done. Just, communication, trying to get stuff from the ground, like us as the admins, up to the people that actually manage everything and say, like, why we're right from hearing and talking with customers is quite difficult. And I can only imagine how frustrating it can be to, like, as he's saying, know what you want to do, and then you've got to just wait on Apple or Google so that they can do their approvals for iOS and Android. It just, every time someone is like, God, fix your game, I'm like, you realize that, like, even something as simple as, removing a minion from Battlegrounds or whatever, when it's messing up, like the microbot, I feel like people got upset about that, and it was sort of like, this is trickier than you might think to just make happen.
It's also kind of interesting to think about when you look at Hearthstone, you think, oh, it's a small game, right? Because it's in the same client as like World of Warcraft, which has this vast, expansive world that you play in and have all these abilities and stuff. And then you're like, oh, well, Hearthstone's just like this game board where you have cards and you play. And it's like, no, Hearthstone is actually like this massive game that has the appearance of like a like you wouldn't really you almost think of a game like Hearthstone and Slay the Spire almost on like the same level, right? Because it's kind of similar in that sense of the scope of when you're playing it, but in actuality they're like vastly different in terms of size, and also the whole, as Hat was saying, the corporate idea of trying to get stuff done in a gigantic company like Blizzard.
Yeah. And even outside of corporate, I mean, so the relying on these other companies, Apple and Google, to approve things is one thing, but also you tend to have different developers working on mobile languages as opposed to your regular game stuff. So it's just it's all these extra layers of complication because we have the luxury of being able to play this game on Apple phones and Android phones and PC. If it was just on PC, there would be a lot more smooth and fast updates, I would imagine, because it would just be on their end, and there wouldn't be all these additional languages and companies that they have to rely on.
Oh no, I just realized what Bodicus is mad about. Okay, I'm mentally preparing myself. Edelweiss, why don't you take this next one?
Okay.
It's a ways down.
I know where it is.
All right, so this next question, is there a general direction you take when it comes to counteracting power creep in Battleground? It feels currently as though it's relatively unchecked. 3 overpowered things come in, 1 gets nerfed, and the power level keeps rising. Nixar sorry. Wait, Ixar and Dean are the same person.
They sure are.
Yep. Okay, Ixar responds.
Do we want to go through like all these word by word, because this is a long response, and we have a lot of things here. I know this is kind of editing on the fly. If you want to go through the whole thing, I'm fine with it. It's just
This is
we'll-
the
text.
This is the single longest response. There's nothing to anywhere near.
So Ixar responds, power creep is somewhat natural in any live service game, not as a design choice, but as a side effect to wanting to make fun new things. If perfect balance on launch is unrealistic, and worst case is you release new things no one interacts with, then what is the alternative? We are a live service game, so if something is out of whack, we'll adjust it after the fact. But there is nowhere in Hearthstone we intentionally create new things with the intention of making them much more powerful than everything else. We'll make a new hero or a new tribe, and we'll make a prediction of where that new thing will land on the power scale and ask ourselves if we're okay with that. If we're not, we adjust. Sometimes something is really fun in playtest, and we'd like it to be very strong. Sometimes something has a much more niche gameplay that is potentially frustrating, so we don't want it to reach peak levels. George is a good example. But over time, if you keep wanting to make impactful things, you always have to compete with the last thing you made, thus increasing power over time very slightly. It makes the oldest thing you made feel out of date. I think it's more likely we'll continue to adjust those old things than do a sweeping nerf of what is available. Gameplay is still fun, in our opinion, so rebalancing in the name of power creep I don't think is going to result in more fun. At some point, that might not be true, and we'll take a harder look at a big sweeping change.
It's a good answer.
Yeah. I don't really have more to add on that one. It's just kind of it's the way things go.
Yeah, I like the focus on. He gives highlights on how it's a live service game multiple times in this AMA, and I think it's good to just think about it as it's all about, like an MMO, you have to make new stuff. You don't want it to get stale all the time. Yeah. I think that BG's is still very fun right now, so I agree with his particular assessment. And then when Elementals came out and it was way too good twice, they nerfed it twice, so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there'll be an ebb and flow with that kind of stuff. I expect to see something like that. Kind of follow-up question, still in the same vein regarding BGs.
Hey,
with
this
the
was
rise
from
of
me.
BGs and
I asked this question.
You said Edelweiss, me, you.
No, I asked this on Twitter.
He asked it
It is
on
my
Twitter.
tweet.
Oh, sorry. All right. With the rise of BGs and the addition of duels, Hearthstone really feels like it's transitioning from a game to a platform. How has the team adapted in terms of structure? How has the code base held up? And how has your day-to-day and year-over-year life changed because of it? Ixar's response is that BGs are massively popular, it's fun, and it's growing. We're trying to adapt ourselves into thinking there can be multiple products under one umbrella. There are challenges with our game that wasn't originally designed to solve, but luckily we plan on it being around for a while. The code base is not really my area, so I'd be waving my hands around, not really saying anything of substance. If answering, I'd view duels as normal Hearthstone with a twist, like Arena or a single player, easier to manage. Day-to-day is very different, but mostly I manage 14 designers and my main job is to be there for them, in addition to making decisions on random things that need a decision. Dean is a decision maker. Makes the decisions, makes the hard choices.
When you expand a team, you add more management, and Dean has moved from hands-on to management, and it still seems like he's pretty involved. But 14 people is a lot of people to directly manage. That's a lot of people to directly manage. So,
yeah,
not surprised at all that his day-to-day is different, but also that he has more time to share this sort of thing because he's less doing the hands-on work himself. What is the rationale behind dropping a nerf patch right in the middle of the most important tournament in the CN server? The nerf of Edwin Bogspine was introduced hours before the final between Sif and Shao-Ti with no advance notice. I am honestly unclear on the details of this because I don't personally do these checks anymore. I used to, but sometimes the timings of nerf don't line up with how we'd like. We've done nerfs mid-tournament in the past. Windows for a patch are small, especially if they are before a client patch on the way. Hintity hint hint. Sometimes if we don't do a balanced patch on a Friday, the next time we can do it is 1 to 2 weeks later. Ultimately, we have to make the best call for the majority audience. So, still lines up with our timing that if it is a week from tomorrow, like if it's next week, they had to nerf on Friday. So, but this is an unsatisfying answer, but an accurate one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next we have, what steps in the design process have a bigger impact than you feel it gets credit for? Any unsung heroes on the design team whose work and ideas you think we should be paying more attention to? Nixar says, so many unsung heroes. Swingsy is a big one, mega talented engineer that is responsible for making so many of the things you love work. When I don't have the answer to something at work, I CC Sale and say, he probably knows, he's smart, he always knows. Also, we have a narrative designer named Val that is killer, does a lot of writing for things like flavor text or story content, big influence on the characters we create.
Cool.
I love questions like this. I think it's important to give people like Dean the ability to shout out people that deserve shout outs, because it feels good when, everybody's been at work and felt like they were doing a good job and maybe didn't get recognized for it. And I think it's important to be able to tell people they're doing a good job, even if sometimes they get told at work. It's nice to have that extra reinforcement.
Yep. There are a lot of people that make the game, and the designers are the faces, but there are so many people that make this game happen.
All right, next question. What's your favorite mechanic / card that never quite had enough power to see much competitive play? Sometimes I think about an alternate reality if all the Mean Streets of Gadgets and hand buff cards had costed 1 less and subsequently ran rampant in the meta.
The alternate universe with the Don Honcho meta.
And Dean's response is just that he was talking about hand buff today. And in the case of Inspire, they made Inspire weak on purpose because they weren't sold on the gameplay and didn't have the time to redesign it completely to be able to feel safer. In the case of hand buff, I think they were mostly balanced misses. It was fun, we just didn't get the power level right. That legendary should have probably been better at encouraging having more hand buff cards as opposed to standalone design. And then random favorite card that didn't see much play, Void Ripper. Always felt so smart for including it, resulted in satisfying board interactions, just like Wicked Good.
Yep. For those that don't know what Void Ripper is, a 3-mana 3/3 epic that flipped the power and health of every minion in play. Really, really good with Primordial Drake. In particular, like you could make some big butts and just kill people with them.
Or with Raid Leader in Odd Paladin.
Yeah, it kept the buff, so it was indeed. Next question here: when designing powerful, even polarizing cards such as Ticketus, what strategies and tools do y'all use in determining balance? As cards of this nature typically incite player frustration. What standards and properties are focused in designing these types of cards? I love this answer, by the way. I'm going to go into it more after. This is probably a long answer, but the short one is that some people love these cards. Like, they play your game because these cards exist. They are mean. They like to do mean things. The idea of destroying their opponent's cards gives them cackle-worthy joy. Because of this, we want to make something for that player because they can be so frustrating. We don't want them to be too powerful. Mean person that loves mean stuff gets their toy to use, but most players aren't regularly exposed to it. That's the dream, at least. If Ticketus were meta and at 20% of decks, I'm skeptical that is good for us in the same way it wasn't great for Shadowwalk to be the number 1 deck or Freeze Mage to be the most popular thing. Perfect. Perfect answer. In addition to Ticketus accomplishing the goal of a mid-range deck being able to deal with combo, it also accomplishes the goal of being a griefer card. And the game needs to appeal to griefers beyond just playing priest. I'm glad they made Ticketus, and this answer, yeah, there are so many different ways to enjoy the game, and one of the ways to enjoy the game is make sure your opponent is not having any fun whatsoever.
But
Oh, man.
I can do that by just telling them, "Hey, loser," over and over and over again.
Penslinger
I'm
appeals
not
to a bunch
priest
of players.
main. I'm a griefer main.
Yeah.
I just don't play the griefer cards because they're not good enough to play. I just play other griefer decks. Oh, okay.
Yeah, makes a lot of
Everything
sense, I'm
is way
sure.
more clear now.
All right, Edel. I'm sorry, but this next question is for you.
What are some game features, Dust Econ, tournament mode, game modes, etc., you and the team want in the game but are unable to currently implement? What are some of the challenges that arise when deciding what gets put into the game and what does not? We'd like more esports things to be in the client. When it's all out of the client, it makes it less accessible. I think Fortnite does a pretty good job of this, but there are just so many other things we want to do, it's on the back burner. Womp womp.
Yeah.
We want a mode that is easier to just get in and play. Battlegrounds is good at this. What is the card game version of this? Is there a mode we can create that you could just click a button and you are playing a game with your cards? How could we make that compelling? Challenges are simple and complex. You need the right people, you need the right vision, and you need the resources. Sometimes you want to do something, but not as bad as you want to do things 1 through 98. Thing 99 isn't getting made anytime soon.
Aw. They have good insight
Yeah.
here. And
They do.
I like this answer as well. I was thinking about this the other day when I was starting a duel run. I was on the couch on my iPad, and I was like, let me do something boring. Like, let me do something easy. I'll just get into a duel right here. And I went and clicked play, and I clicked the class, and it's like, oh, I gotta build a deck? Never mind, I'll just do a BG. And
Yeah.
I think duels as well as constructed tavern brawls have this thing where, like, it is not just click and go. And duels in particular, I think, suffers from before you do anything, you have to decide. You have to make so many decisions right away. Yeah.
Arena as well.
Yeah. Well, Arena, though, it gives you 3 cards and says pick one. And then you just keep clicking there. It's not like you have to go through your entire collection. You have to choose between 3 cards, not 100. Not that I
mean, that was part of
play a lot
the
of Arena.
beauty of Whizbang, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And
Notice
not that I
he
play a
also
lot of
says,
Arena.
how can we make this more compelling? Because that's the problem with Arena.
Yes.
Because it's not compelling. And somehow Hat lined this up. And this time it's not on purpose, because he usually does this on purpose, but he gave me the priest question. Is there any chance priest's card design will return to some kind of nice mechanic with healing, like we had with cleric and alchemy, or the direction you want for the class is exclusively random value generation? And
Please
the only response is no, our plan with priest is exclusively not nice mechanics from now on. Thank you for asking.
Dean, I love you. Dean, you're great.
I love that response. And then follows up with a less snarky answer. The priest toolkit is pretty wide from a design view, random generation, healing, tempo curve, gameplay, and traditional control. They're going to re-explore what Shadow Priest means, which is sort of a different direction I think a lot of players will like. This is interesting. I'm guessing there's going to be less mind blasting people for 30 to the face, which I don't like.
Good guess. I think it's a good guess. I feel very confident you will not.
They got rid of Velen. If they get rid of Mally, I mean, Mind Blast isn't interesting, so I'm guessing it's not going to be quite Mind Blast.
No,
but
because there's still like Archmage Vargoth too. Although that might rotate. It's probably rotating.
It does, yes.
But Auchenai Circle of Healing was just such a cool thing that you could do in Priest for so long. It was a really nice board clear tool to have. So I like seeing some kind of Shadow Priest come back.
They're going to do something. I'm curious to see what this looks like. All right, I'll take the next 2 here because this first question is pretty quick. Did you all anticipate Turtle Mage? Answer, no. What's your favorite keyword that you'd like to revisit in the future? Good chance we'll revisit dual class. I honestly wonder if Hearthstone would be more fun if it was permanently dual class. Would have to revisit some balance to do it, but it's a great mechanic. Very unlikely this will happen, just a curiosity I have. I love that they're thinking about it. We've talked about it in the past. It's the dual class cards have generally, outside of a couple exceptions, felt like single class cards with a second color that you can play or can generate. But if they did it right, it'd be really cool to have this be a part of Hearthstone. And I think it would add value.
Do this.
Yeah.
Just like Magic does it. In most sets, the 2-color cards, essentially the dual class cards, very few and far between, but they do happen randomly in sets. And then sometimes you just have a lot more of the dual class cards. Maybe you even have tri-class cards again. Maybe not, but yes, bring back dual class cards. That'd be sweet.
Yep. And they've...
Yeah, I mean, Magic
Go ahead.
Magic does a thing where they tend to have, sets that, okay, it's pretty dual color heavy or, tricolor heavy. They have more or less multicolor cards. And then you have a sort of palette cleanser in the next set will be monocolored focused. And they'll kind of go through rotations of how many multicolor cards they have in sets and things, depending on the themes. So having, as he says, dual class cards in rotation, I mean, that just means they need to make them once every 2 years, right?
And they've been experimenting with unbalanced set sizes with Demon Hunter. That was to account for the missing classic cards, but like they don't have to have every class get the same amount of cards. You can print one dual class card and give one extra card to Druid and Shaman or something. You could do that. So they can just print them when they need to, but they'll probably keep things balanced. They'll probably do cycles, but they don't have to. Yeah.
So next we have, is there any chance I can buy the Maiev portrait? It's my favorite one, and I was not playing Hearthstone back during the year of the Mammoth. I started mid-2018. I understand not making buyable again portraits from bundles, but that one, you could. Thank you. Our plan is to keep adding old stuff to the shop over time. We've done card backs. I imagine we'll do more of those, and some old hero portraits. Sorry, no plans currently, though.
Oh. But I promise I didn't plan this.
Yeah, sure you didn't. I'm just going to take 2 questions just because, this one's a little short, and then we'll give Bodica's the Demon Hunter question.
I promise I didn't
Definitely
plan this.
wasn't planned. I think Demon Hunter has too many class identities. Card draw, cost reduction, efficient face damage, powerful weapons, etc. Will those characteristics be redefined in the future or refined in the future? And Dean's response was that it is hard to answer. Ideally, we'd like them to have a good aggressive deck and a good control deck with big demon friends. In order to have both, you need a toolkit that's pretty wide. They don't even really have to have a great control deck, even with all the tools at their disposal. In a perfect world, they are a little weaker with traditional hard removal and AoE tools than most decks, but make up for it through weapon removal and powerful 7+ cost creatures. They keep a lot of what makes them great in aggro-like draw. Hard to make that work, but mostly agree there's a lot they can do. Making a new class is very difficult. Well, he just says making a new class is hard. Trying to adjust in small increments over time rather than do a big rework after big rework, which is fine, I guess. Definitely smarter to do small tweaks to find a soft spot instead of just reworking the whole class. But also, maybe look at that hero power like you looked at the Warlock hero power. But maybe not, because you didn't change the Warlock hero power.
It does also sound like they're looking to give them less going forward if he's aware of this. Like, if they mostly agree that there's a lot they can do and say that he's trying to adjust in increments over time, it sounds like they want to print more cards like Cycle of Hatred, which doesn't have a home right now.
I love that card, particularly with Moarg.
Yeah, it's cool, but it doesn't have a home right now because it's not worth playing, and you can't play that in a deck with Skull, so they can just nerf Skull. Yeah. All right. What is a character you always wanted to put in Hearthstone but still haven't been able to? Maximilian of Northshire. Who is this? Lore Master Eve, you're
I
in
don't
the
know
chat.
who that is either.
Yeah. Lore Master Eve is in the chat. I'm sure she will tell us. But I will take a look at this next question here. How does Team 5 make Hearthstone accessible to new players that are also new to the genre of card games? I have friends who find the game interesting when I play it, but when they start a new account, they give it because they find it complicated. Card games are complicated. Hearthstone is touted as a simple card game, but in the wider view of games, in general, it's incredibly complex. We'd like to have more modes like Battlegrounds that are click a button and play. Lots of work to be done here. Okay. Yeah, card games are really, really, really hard. Not even being good at them, but like learning how to do them at all. Like learning how mechanics work. It's difficult. It's challenging.
Really.
And that's assuming you only play like one class. There are a lot of classes in Hearthstone.
Yeah. You know, that friend that was always trying to teach you how to play Magic?
Yep.
They had a lot more failures of trying to get their friends to play Magic than they did successes.
Yeah.
I looked up Maximilian of Northshire. The only thing that stands out is that Maximilian threw a damsel off a cliff. The squire did not catch her, and he blames him for her death. All right,
Yikes.
that's what stands out.
Why don't you?
Okay. My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. Yikes. Okay. Edelweiss, go ahead and take this next one.
Moving on. Achievements with XP incentives incentivize trying fun and interesting cards and decks, but some achievements, Oh My Yogg and Shadow Clone, feel difficult or frustrating to work towards. Is this something you all are thinking about with future expansion achievements? Yeah, I'd love to have a talk with our amazing and talented designer in charge of making achievements, but I think we'd be aligned to do less like Oh My Yogg specifically. Shadow Clone is on the line, but most players I've talked to that went out of their way to build a deck for it were successful fairly quickly. Yeah, the Oh My Yogg one is
Excessive.
really difficult.
It's stupid. It's a stupid achievement. It's when like you have to. Someone has to die to whatever Oh My Yogg turns a spell into directly. Kind of silly. Really difficult.
Can you do these in friendly challenges?
No. It's achievements and portraits are RAD. That's the acronym. Ranked Arena Duels. RAD. That's it. Yep. But why don't you take the next two here?
All right. For the classic rework, will us players be getting any compensation? Oh, for cards that are getting rotated. Earlier this week, we heard that the Hall of Fame will be no more. So are we getting anything to replace the dust we'd normally get? It's complicated and will be answered soonish. It's a good change.
Okay.
I might have read this and forgot I read this and then just brought it up on the show anyway, but yep, there it is. And someone also asks, what are some mechanics that maybe have seemed interesting or seemed good to add to the game, but the technology wasn't there or you guys couldn't figure out how to implement it? I think the idea of graveyards and interacting with things that died would be really interesting. Thematically, it's awesome, and I know there is design space, but not sure how to visualize it or if it's worth adding additional UI. Asking players to keep another zone in their head is a huge ask. One of the biggest complexity asks or adds. We'd have to be sure it made the game way more fun. Otherwise, it's not worth doing. But it might.
Yeah, this one's interesting because in some sense we do have a quote graveyard already.
Kind of.
It's just limited in terms of its existence, right? Like it exists for decks that resurrect things. So specifically a card like N'Zoth, either the old one or the new one, cares about what cards from are in your death pool so it can resurrect them. Obviously, Priest Graveyard has mattered a lot already in terms of resurrecting minions and even counterplay of transforming their stuff so they resurrect bad things. From a UI standpoint, I'm thinking about this, and my like small bit of background in UI, this would be challenging if
Yes.
you're trying to do something where you can actually click into your graveyard to like select something. I'm not sure that needs to exist in Hearthstone to create fun and interesting graveyard things.
There's nothing in Hearthstone where we have to keep track of more than what our hand is the most. Our hand is the maximum our hand can be is 12 cards with Valdr's Felgorge, and 12 is a lot. Even a 10-card hand is a lot sometimes. Minions in play is 7. Discovers are 3. History is 6. Graveyard could be boundless. And dealing with Graveyard, like, it would be... Yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah, unless you were very strict about what could go there. Like, it had to be actual cards, not generated things. But that's kind of hard to wrap my head around right now because of all the generated things. Is it just tokens that don't go, or is it also things that you got randomly from something else? The rules would get really weird really quickly. And if it's just everything, then yeah, as Hat says, your graveyard would be so boundless. You would need a search bar to actually find what you were looking for.
You might figure something out here, but yeah, I can see how this is a big complexity add. Is this...
Hat, I think you have the next one.
Yes. Did we
You said read the next two. I did too, so technically it's your turn. But
No, it
I'll
was-
happily take this next one.
My turn was actually... No, we switched with that list. We went the wrong order. Okay, I'll take this question. We can't get excited about low ranks in Asia servers because there are a lot of players who use unpleasant, aggravating emotes and they have to silence them every time. Can you tell me why you've decided not to implement the ability to silence in Hearthstone's default settings? Botticus, could you cross your arms even harder than you're doing? No, I don't think you could. People hate this answer, but we take adding buttons extremely seriously. If we added a button every time someone in the team asked for it, Hearthstone would be nothing but buttons and menus. When we think about adding something new, we will always ask if it's absolutely necessary. And in this case, the idea of squelching someone is such an easy action it's never felt necessary to implement. You have to be a player that hates emotes, and have been in a game where someone would have emoted you and you had a worse experience because of it. How big is that audience? I sympathize that the audience in this circumstance includes you, but that is the train of thought. I
feel like this audience is everyone.
Yeah,
The first answer is not the answer I hate. He says people hate this answer. No, the first line is fine. I understand that if you added a button every time somebody asked for it, Hearthstone would be nothing but buttons and menus. I get that. I don't hate that answer. I hate the following answers.
It's
seriously, all I want. I want them to talk to their other game development friends who work in companies that have similar type games, you might even say competing games, who have this option enabled, and I want them to figure out what percentage of the player base goes and clicks this option, because that'll give them a very
compelling.
That's a very firm answer to how popular this is. And if this is like I would argue that probably like 5%. I would say maybe 5% at least would want to click this button.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge... If you can make one change that's an upgrade for 5% of your player base, I think that's massive. But I don't know. If it's 1%, let's say you talk to Legends of Runeterra that has this option, and I remember that they have this option because I was very happy that they had this option, and I went and clicked it. And if you told me that 1% of the people that play Legends of Runeterra actually go in and click that option, then I'm fine. You don't want to make this update. It's definitely one of those slippery slope type arguments where if you add this, you have to add all this other stuff. But if you can make an improvement for 5% of your player base, I think it's gigantic. And so
Runeterra does not have auto squelch.
It doesn't? What?
MTG Arena does.
MTG Arena definitely does, yeah.
Runeterra has a squelch button next to the player name.
I swear I thought Runeterra had an auto squelch.
Nope.
Oh well.
Yeah.
I didn't play that game long enough to find out. But anyway.
Certainly I would be curious to know Wizards data on how many people use auto squelch. I certainly feel like it's a lot. And it's curious to me, what was their reasoning for adding the turning off screen shake?
accessibility. Almost certainly that is some kind of accommodation for vertigo or epilepsy or something like that.
Okay.
It's
Gotcha,
almost
gotcha.
certainly, if they added it and they thought it was necessary, I would not be surprised if it was due to some user feedback based on a disability.
Mhm.
I'm so tempted, by the way, on Wednesday to send out a tweet that says, "How many retweets do I need to get for you to add an auto squelch button?" Just because
Yeah.
he says, "How big is the audience?" If we get 100,000 retweets, that's a pretty damn big audience. But
Unfortunately, I don't
yeah,
think there are that many
no,
loud Twitter Hearthstone players for it to be enough data, right?
Well, and unfortunately, I have to say that Jesse Alexander had a good idea about this. Just, you can do it without adding a button. When you squelch someone, leave it on squelch, and you have to manually turn off unsquelch. Like, it just
that is
sticks.
so good.
You don't have to add a button.
That would also be elegant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that's so good.
in the past, what they've said is they want Hearthstone to feel like a two-player game, and emotes are a form of interaction, and permanently turning them off forever is not a way to make the game feel interactive. But I am also not necessarily compelled by that argument. If nothing
They
else,
want it to be interactive, but they don't want you to be able to chat to your opponents.
not that
Which
interactive.
I agree with.
Yeah.
You should not be able to. That would lead to bad things happening, I think. But
like,
I mean,
the idea I've had in the past is if you to have an option somewhere, or it could even be the squelch button, have it apply to your current login. But then when you log out, like, you have to set it once per login. But then when you log out, it's reset, so that you don't forget and keep them off forever. But it's the next time you log out, it just clears the flag. I don't know if that's possible.
I turn the game sound off every time I go in because something is weird where I keep having to turn the sound off when I go in the game. It comes back the next time I enter the game. I have my game sound off and I still squelch my opponent.
yeah, I mean,
That's a lot.
I don't know what to say other than
Seems a little out of touch.
The fact that auto squelch is not in the game makes me play the game less. Period. I play the game less, and I have a deck tracker that auto squelches for me, but I literally play the game less because I do not play on my phone as often because auto squelch is not a thing. It should. This says bad things about me, the fact that it tilts me so much, but I'm more tilted about emotes than I am about any Hearthstone thing that has existed outside of it. I tilt off more about emotes in game than any other. There's no deck that has ever tilted me as much as emotes have. So I am very much, as I've stated on the podcast before, in favor of having an auto squelch button, and it'd be interesting to see what kind of audience there actually is to this. Because if I'm wrong and it's 1% of the player base, I mean, I'm living with it regardless, but I would feel better knowing that they're not adding it because it's such a small portion of the player base. But in actuality, if it's a large portion of the player base and they just don't think that it is, then that's just an error on their part, I guess.
Yeah. And Lore Master Eve in the chat is saying she's like me, has the Hearthstone sound off because you have other stuff playing, but we still auto squelch because if you don't squelch, then you still get the subtitles of what they're saying. So if you squelch, you don't even get that. And I think the issue with it is yes, okay, we need to work on our stuff so we don't get so easily tilted. I definitely try and do that. I'm a lot better about it on stream because I don't want to be flipping out on stream. But something about just the way the internet is as a space, and there's people that grief with cards and there's people that grief with emotes and player interaction. Hearthstone in some ways doesn't feel like as toxic of an area of the internet because it has fewer ways to interact. You don't have your League of Legends all chat.
Oh, well, that is an extreme example, but yes.
Well, yes, but it would be, I think it would be just as bad, if not worse, if we had some kind of chat between you and your opponent in Hearthstone.
Yeah. It's
for sure.
Yeah.
There's a reason you generally don't accept friend requests from people when they add you after a game, right? I was really surprised when I realized that Magic Online, like Moto, has a chat between the players. I was like, oh no,
Oh yeah.
that sounds terrible. Why would you do that?
Well,
Uh,
because WotC doesn't know what they're doing, and luckily nobody plays that game anymore, so it's not as bad.
well,
But
do
yes.
it for like Legacy and Vintage
Oh.
Cube.
I have a friend that still plays Moto, and
There's plenty of people that still play Moto.
let me tell you, he gets some juicy chat messages. He has a knack for trolling people digitally,
no.
which is mind-boggling how he control people digitally. But very, very good player. Also gets some of the funniest chat messages.
And so
Magic
I'm
Online.
glad we don't have that. But something about the timing of when people emote you, it's just like they know when to do it to make you just tilt off the face of the earth. So I
It's
think
not even well played. It's like the greetings at the end of the game.
Oh, yeah. No, terrible. Especially if it's after another form of BM, such as them acting like they don't have the lethal and then they play the generated card for lethal or something. And like, yes, this is something that we need to work on as like players and people to not be as affected by this. But it would be also cool if we could just easily opt in or out of that interaction without. Like, I have developed now a nervous habit of I continually check to make sure my opponent is squelched, and I do that like every turn or so. Because I immediately forget if I've squelched them, and then I make some play as the game goes on because I've been thinking about stuff. I forgot about it, and I want to double check because I know how bad it could be for me if I've screwed up and not successfully squelched my opponent, and then they emo me at a particular time, and it frustrates me and throws me off my game.
Get a little token or a coin or something that you flip at the end of every game, and that you flip when you squelch them, and then you can just look at that instead.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So, anyways, we're getting close to the 2-hour mark. Let's boogie through these last 10 questions or so.
Yeah. So, by the way, when you said you think that mine is most likely to happen, remember when I said nope?
Yeah. Okay.
This is why. Proof of why.
We'll see. Yeah. All right. Go ahead and read the next two, bot.
I think it's Edelweiss's turn, right? Because you read that one, and then we both responded.
We changed the order. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead, Edelweiss. Go ahead.
Will you redesign dual mode? I think dual mode deserves better and more. Hearthstone is a live service game, and we will continue to add and adjust duels. Plans to update it soon, in fact. So, cool. Update to duels soon. That'll be nice. I noticed that the nerfs in the recent 2 years were much more than ever. In Ashes of Outland, there are even 18 cards that have been nerfed. Will you feel that the frequent nerfs, which leads to decks weakening, could diminish players' enthusiasm? We try to make nerfs nowadays so that if they affect your deck, you don't feel like the deck is worthless. You continue to queue with it at a slightly less powerful rate. As a result of this desire, the changes are smaller and need to come in a higher number to reach the same impact. Also, our game is 7 years old. When you launch, you have all new players who are more averse to frequent change. Our game is not all new players anymore. Our population is tons of core users who can handle the complexity of shaking things up. As the people who play your game change, adapting to that is an important piece of development.
All right. Yeah, he talked about that when he came on the show. Yeah. Oh, this question is long, but I'm going to read this one. We'll swap. Although I know that buffing cards needs much more work than nerfing cards, from my perspective, buffing the weak class is a more appropriate method for the players and the game. Dean says, I agree, it's a more satisfying player moment to buff, but it's just difficult to make a minute impact. Buffs are good to address the power level of someone's class that feels ineffective, but they're generally weak at changing a metagame for the better. Almost all of our nerfs are directed at metagame health and overall player experience, not the experience of just one class. You can do that with the change of 1 to 2 cards, much harder when trying to buff, and the window of success is way tighter if you have a deck that is 25% play rate. When you nerf, your success window is huge. If you over-nerf, it's not ideal, but still makes a big, generally positive impact. People stop playing the class and the meta shifts. When you buff, you're trying to take something from a 0 to 1% play rate to a 3 to 10% play rate. Anything below is not impactful, and anything above risks introducing a too powerful deck that requires further immediate balance updates. Not to say we won't do it. I'm in total support of doing more buffs to adjust cards or archetypes that didn't quite make it. I just don't see it as using it as a meta balance tool like we do with nerfs. Smart answer. Wicked has been saying this for years. And it's really just like, when you buff, you have a really, really small window to hit, and usually it makes things worse or it doesn't matter.
see Luna's Pocket Galaxy and Extra Arms.
Yeah, I think it's a good example. But go ahead and take this next one.
How do you end up deciding if a card's effect should be random and to what extent? For example, the Death Rattle effect of Sylvanas. It targets a random minion, but its effect also could have ended up targeting the leftmost minion instead. How do you decide what's best? In the given example, you ask players to think about how they order their minions to play around extremely possibility that their opponent might play a Sylvanas. There's so much going on in a game that generally something we don't want you to have to agonize over. Whereas with discard effects, they're much more okay with it. You don't control the order of your hand as it's drawn. You only have to start considering it once you draw the card. There is depth there, but not taking up too much brain space at unnecessary times. Rightmost and leftmost tend to be random instead because they can be confusing from what perspective you're talking about. If I told you to destroy your opponent's leftmost minion, does that mean from your perspective or your opponent's? It makes sense. I think the for the most part, with this random, the random idea is randomness generally happens when you don't have control over when the effect happens. For the most part, so like if Sylvana, like you can't have any, like obviously they're talking about leftmost or rightmost, but Sylvanas is kind of like that situation, right, where it could happen on your opponent's turn, it could happen on your turn, and if you don't know when it's going to happen, it's going to happen at a random target.
Yep. So we have quite a few questions left here. We're going to jump to the 4 juiciest ones. There's a bunch left in the article, but we're going to trim down to a few questions here, talk about Dean's dumb idea, and then wind down the show. So,
Okay.
yeah. Edelweiss, why don't you take these first 2 here in the show notes?
Perfect. All right, so are there plans to release a random hero portrait option like we have with card backs? Maybe.
Cool. I hope
I
so.
had a love for Hearthstone. Yeah, I hope so too. I had a love for Hearthstone that somewhat died down over the last years, but I still love to follow the scene. What would be the number one reason as to why the team never went through with tournament mode? Tournament mode was high profile because we announced it, but the reason was simple and not so abnormal. We explored a robust new feature, play tested, couldn't find something we felt was quality to release. We took a hard look at it and estimated that it would take what it would take to change all the things that needed to be changed. Estimated that we'd have to give up. Wait, what?
Estimated what we'd have to give up.
Sorry, what we'd have to give up to spend the resources to accomplish that. They decided it wasn't worth it to them at the time, and so they cut the feature to explore other ideas. And I think when this happened, we all kind of figured, like, they talked about what they were thinking of for tournament mode, and the whole community was like, no, that's not what we want in a tournament mode. And I think
the whole community wasn't even on the same page anyways.
there.
It's not like people had agreement about it or even could speak to what it meant. Just like they kept saying the words tournament mode, but no one really ever went further than that. Like, I want to be able to queue best of 3 or best of 5 conquest in the client, and what you do with that I almost don't care about, but I want to be able to queue that. That is what is important to me, but it means different things to different people, and their implementation was probably just wasn't there. So,
well, they were probably like, this is what we're thinking we can get, and then everybody's like, no, we want this, and this, and they're like, oh no, that would take, holy cow, to do that we would have to just ignore the next 2 expansions or something, and then it's like, okay, well, we can't afford to do that, so unfortunately it's on the back burner, if that even exists.
Yeah, I mean, he said he wants esports in the client, but it is also not a thing they're focused on, so we'll see. But why don't you take this next one?
Looking back at lackeys as they're about to rotate, do you feel that they introduce too many situations where there are chains of discover, and nearly infinite value decks? I think if we could go back in time, we would have cut the Dragon Discover in place of something else. Generation has gotten a little wider than we'd like, but it's not a forever thing. Next year should see less. Rotation should help. So, cool. They realized that they got just a little too crazy with the generation.
Last question here before we get to the dumb idea, which is amazing. What are the current thoughts on Animated Broomstick? Did it surprise you all? Has it been on a nerf list at some point? Was probably the thing closest to getting nerfed that didn't. We discussed it.
Ooh.
It's still under the microscope, but it's an interesting card that makes Hearthstone feel different. The gameplay is subjective. Personally, I think it's fun and unique, but giving anything rush at any time has its downside. Because we are split on our feelings about gameplay, and it's not overbearing in terms of power level, felt best to hold off for now.
I'm calling it. Give adjacent minions rush.
Could be. I expect they'll just make it cost 2.
Yeah, for that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a very, very strong card. Interesting. All right. Do we get anything for being top ranked in Battlegrounds or Standard? Would make me want to grind more, to be honest, like a coin or jacket or something. Dean's response. I'd love to do that, but unfortunately this is my area, so I can't say. I've always had this really dumb idea, though. We make a bunch of jackets and give them to the best players in each region in some cadence, maybe every month, maybe every 3 months, whatever. We do this for every new person, but when someone wins a second time, we send them something custom and ridiculous, like a 10-foot-long Hearthstone sombrero. And if they do it more times, the gifts get progressively more ridiculous, to the point we're sending a flame-printed Hearthstone-branded PT Cruiser or something. It's compelling to players because of rewards, compelling to fans because of wanting to know what the next ridiculous prize is, worth it to us because the prizes are so silly they get lots of coverage and it's decent marketing. Okay, that is my dumb idea. Thanks for listening.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you desperately want a 10-foot long Hearthstone sombrero hat?
There is no number that accurately expresses my desire, and I already replied to that tweet saying this is a very compelling prize, which I think it truly is. And remember, they had the TFT Invitational, and they sent all the players custom branded shoes. The shoes?
Oh my god.
They
I
were
was
so
dying.
cool.
I was like, oh, that is the most hype thing ever.
It probably cost them less than most of their marketing stuff. You just make people a bunch of shoes.
Yeah. And honestly, like, it was cool even if you were like a viewer of the channel, just kind of living vicariously through the streamer that posted to Twitter and got this stuff. Like, as a Hearthstone fan, I was so jealous of the people that were TFT content creators, that this was a thing in their community, because it was just so amazing. And you know, I think it's really cool that they kind of do this a bit, right? They sent out the sweaters, the Christmas sweaters,
Yep.
and they've sent other kind of loot boxes to people before, with fun Hearthstone merch. I think that's really cool. But it'd be nice, again, to have like a path to that wasn't just content creation based, and that you could get for like, being really good at the game. It'd be awesome to work towards.
Yeah. Custom branded crap is an amazing prize that everybody likes, and it probably costs them less than most things do. So I hope that they do something. But we're going to wind it down here. One of the longest shows in a while. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website, CoinConcede.com. You can find our content info, show notes, and Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live. Follow us on Twitch, twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord, discord.coinconcede.com. Run into our email, coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @coinconcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. Check out our shop, shop.coinconcede.com. No 10-foot-long CoinConcede sombreros yet, but we're working on it. Big thanks to our producers, Number 30, Tenor Wizard, Tony S, TK, Proby1, Dr. Feature, Boopty Boop, and Pat T. That list is so long. Oh my goodness. Thank our Twitch subs, AK for Life. Thank you for your sub. Proby1, 3 subs. Wicked Good for the raid. Coin Concedes. Con Before the Storm. I was the host of the Con Before the Storm panel. That happened this weekend, rescheduled from Wednesday because, stuff. So it was really fun. Shout-outs to my co-host in that. The audio should be on this feed pretty soon. We'll be posting it. Totino's Pizza, for just being a generally swell member of the Coin Concede community. Thank you so much, friend. Mage Death had an awesome 2-hour session where I taught him the ways of the Whirl Kick Rogue. We went 11-2 and hit Legend in 2 hours. Was really great. Was a very nice record. And we played a lot of Wand Thieves on turn 1, because just play your cards. Play your cards. Yeah. HypoPie, it's hypo, but they needed more characters to fill out a Twitter name, so it's just Hypo and then Hypo backwards. Hypo actually replied, yeah, you didn't know that, did you, otherwise? It's just Hypo and then Hypo again backwards. It's a palindrome.
It's a palindrome.
Yeah. Hypo is an engineer on the Hearthstone team, and so I asked them a question. I asked Dean the question about codebase, and he's like, I don't know anything about the codebase. I'm like, hey, Hypo, can you answer this question? And they had a really great answer about it, so check them out on Twitter. I retweeted as well. And then Halion, over on my Hades podcast, Halion is a pretty big streamer over there, and I got to interview him. Super nice guy. And we talked a bit about things that I think are larger scale. He's recently taken the jump as of 4 months ago to become a full-time streamer. And he's doing some variety gaming and all that, a really good Hades player. But we talked not so much about the content of the game as the life choices that led him and his experience as a full-time content creator, and a lot of the stuff that I love talking about creating healthy relationships with games. So gotten some feedback over in the Hidden Aspects Discord that it might have a wider appeal. If anyone's interested in that kind of conversation, check it out at twitter.com/hiddenaspects. And I hope you like it. All right, Bodigus, Concede.
I'm just going to coin concede to Ixar because that was a fun little segment that we got, and we appreciate him giving us content to talk about, especially when we get to talk about Squelch, Auto Squelch.
Yes. We should theoretically have like a deck that we can Decksplain next week, but the meta is still pretty new and we don't want to go too deep on a deck that,
hypothetically, we have cards to talk about next week.
That'd be nice too. That
would be nice. Yeah, I was considering talking about Highlander Mage because there's a few different lists around again, but I would be much happier to talk about cards than Highlander Mage.
Yes, you were also the only person on the show that has played any Highlander Mage recently. Yes.
I think it's good, but anyways. So my coin concede are just, too many to count. I've had a bunch of people hanging out in my Twitch stream, so coin concede to my viewers. Obviously, most of you are listeners as well. It's been really awesome to be able to try and start streaming so I can feel productive about my Hearthstone time, and getting some people that are listeners of the show to come by and hang out. Hopefully the chat grows over time. For now, I'm just generally explaining my plays as I walk through them. So I suppose I should still play some real decks so you can get kind of coaching, and it's not always memes, but I think probably even with some of the meme decks, walking through my plays, you can maybe get some good advice. Or if you have questions about my plays, obviously come by, feel free to ask them, because Hearthstone's a complicated game, and sometimes maybe you'll see a line I didn't see, or I'll explain to you, why I maybe wouldn't make that play.
Yeah, and that's gonna be our show. So keep calm and put Auto Squelch in the game. And if you see us on ladder, Squelch Concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Bumper goes here. Yeah. Hey, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week.